I think we will begin this session. Welcome to all of you. So happy to see you. And this session is about how to advance workplace well-being. And we also put in the title, The Evolution of Human-Centric Workplaces. And what we can see as a general tendency, and that is a good thing, is that there is an increasing focus on the human factor when it comes to the working environment. There is a lot of work to do, but we see at least a tendency to a higher focus on this. We see that workplaces are generally competing to attract and retain the best employees and the best managers. We see that investment companies are increasingly focusing on not only sustainability from an environmental perspective, but also the human sustainability. We also see changes in the workplaces when it comes to well-being. We all know from the pandemic, but we also see still the remote work evolving. We see the new generations having different demands and different possibilities also when it comes to workplace well-being. So there is an evolution, and this we want to explore today. My name is Pernille Tau, and I'm the Vice President of Human House. We are a private consultancy based in Denmark, Scandinavia, and we work on an international level with leadership, OSH management, safety, health, and well-being. I also have the honor to introduce to you our distinguished panel. First of all, my co-moderator for this session, Dr. Christopher Davis, on the stage here. And I will allow everyone to introduce themselves a little bit more later, but just so you get the overview. We have Mr. Guillaume Lachapelle sitting here, who has the role of rapporteur, which means that Mr. Lachapelle will sum up the key points from today for you to bring home and to work with. And as you might know, you will be able to hear these summaries on Friday at the World Assembly plenary in the morning on Friday. I will get back to this later. For the panelists, we have Mrs. Stine Mosman, who is a dear colleague of mine from Human House. Stine is working internationally with well-being as a psychologist and also as the vice president for our services within leadership and psychosocial working environment on an international scale. Then we have Mr. Malcolm Staves, sitting there, who is the global vice president, health and safety for, I'm sure you all know, the international or the multinational beauty beauty company, you could call it. Is that fair? Cosmetics and beauty company is a good word. Yeah, beauty company, right? That's a new word right there. Cosmetics and beauty multinational company. And then we have Mr. Thomas Heilskov Hansen, who's sitting there, who is the director of health in Novo Nordisk, a Danish-based multinational company also in the pharmaceutical area. And then we have Dr. Tira Ponganan, who is a board committee advisor for the Thai organization of shore pads. So please give a hand to the people. Yeah, so here's the agenda. We are here for 3 hours. And what I can promise you is that we will have a lot of discussion. We will have a little bit of presentation, but a lot of discussion. And now the audience is not that big, but please, I ask you to be involved and to really think about some of the points that we make on stage and so that we can also have some questions from you. You already scanned the QR code. Chris will be posing questions throughout 3 hours, so we can have some interaction with you guys. We have built the workshop around 3 questions. First of all, why is well-being a business concern? I'm sure you are all aware that in the busy daily life of companies or workplaces in general, there might be some focus on safety, and there might also be an intention to have a focus on well-being, but maybe it's not that evolved yet. So it's important for us who work with health and safety and well-being to have the good arguments that we can pose or we can present to management teams, and also have in our own head an understanding of why is well-being also a return on investment and not just a cost. Then we will have panel discussions, firstly with Thomas and Stina and Malcolm, on what are the good well-being programs. They have a lot of experience in implementing well-being programs in workplaces. So this will be an important part of this session. And then, of course, the interesting question is also, how can you as health and safety professionals work with well-being? What is your role? What are your tasks? How can you interact with management and with employees and with the HR department for that matter? And how can you bring home some of the knowledge that you get today to actually start implementing some of this in workplaces? So, but as I said before, we will start off by giving the good arguments for the business. Dr. Tira and I will start this, and then we will go through the rest of the program. Finally, we have Mr. Lachapelle summing up as in the role of rapporteur on the main points of today. So for the newcomers, welcome, and please scan the QR codes. I will just leave the slide on for just a few more seconds. And the QR code is for the interaction with you during this workshop. So you will get questions along the way, and we will ask for your opinions along the way so that we can use this in the workshop. Yeah, I already said a little bit about this, but it's important to us that you bring something home, something that you can use in your daily life, and also with the knowledge and experience that you have working with, whether it's safety, health, or well-being already, how can this experience be, used and harnessed in order to create a better well-being environment at your workplaces? We will talk a lot about the psychosocial working environments. And Chris will also tell you about how can you define well-being in general. But please think about through this session, how can you use your knowledge, your strengths, your expertise in order to improve the well-being for your colleagues, for the workers and the managers in your workplaces. Yeah, and with that introduction, I will pass the word on to Chris to introduce the first point.
We'll be very flexible today, Pernille. Lots of dynamism. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an intimate gathering of people, but if the workshop that I attended this morning is anything to go by, the quality of the conversation is what counts. And actually, the fact that we have people in the room who are interested in well-being and interested in this idea of advancing it is the main thing. Okay, so I think that for over the next 3 hours, it should be our aim to share experiences, to share questions that we might have around this topic, and go away from today's session with something that those in the audience can take away and put into practice. but that us as moderators and as organisers of the event can take away and put into practice as well. As always, as some of my colleagues will know, I'll always try and start with some sort of greeting in the local language. So I'm about to embarrass myself, but I will just go back again and say, good afternoon, everybody. Konnichiwa minasan. And this is the really tricky bit. I am Dr. Christopher Davis. Watashi wa Dr. Christopher Davis. Tomoshimasu? Should I get, there you go. I'm Christopher Davis anyway. My role is Thought Leadership Manager at the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, or IOSH, in the United Kingdom. We are a membership body for safety and health professionals. My role within the organisation is to think and is to ask questions and to come up with ideas and come up with theories. And then it's for others, and today that will be you, to tell me why they work or why they don't work. So my few slides at the beginning are very much me explaining well-being as I see it as an idea, and then hopefully that may be a provocation to you to say, okay, that's great, but that doesn't work for me, or that really works for me. And again, I think it's part of this discussion that we should be having today. So I'm determined that today's session is about doing two things. Firstly, getting to a point when we collectively understand well-being and the common principles that exist between maybe different industries or different regions or different cultures. I think we're probably all aware that well-being is a term that has different definitions and means something different to different people in different places. But I do think that there is an underpinning principle or an underpinning set of principles behind well-being. So I think it is important as a starting point for us to address that. But more importantly, I think it's really important for us today to collectively discuss, to share our experiences, share our expertise, and agree on the things that work for us, and to share those experiences with each other. So maybe at the level of the actions or the processes or the practices that we each use in relation to well-being. Well-being itself and that broad concept of well-being is something that's very central to discussions about modern day work. There is a lot of evidence emerging on the need for holistically good work. So not just work that is good for the body, but work that is good for the mind. And I think that our understanding of well-being has begun to shift from a position where we regard it as something that is nice to have, to a position where we are starting to see it as something that, or where there is a lack of worker well-being, it's something to be considered a safety and health risk. And I think this is helpful because it puts it on a footing where, as safety and health professionals who deal in the language of risk, we're able to apply some of that skill to well-being. It's also a business risk. And I think we'll address throughout the course of the session today why that's an important component here, how we can talk in terms of well-being as a safety and health risk, also a business risk, and that gives us that leverage that we might need to make that business case to our leaders. I don't think that we have yet reached that point where we have a really clear understanding of what the components of good work and good systems are from a well-being perspective. And I think that should be our task today, to think about how good work looks and how we're able to actually apply some of those principles. So I was hesitant to lean too much into this, the audience participation, if we were slightly low on numbers. But I think let's go for it and let's get a starting point. So the first question was just around words or ideas that come to mind when you think about workplace well-being. So with a little bit of luck, if you've scanned the QR code, it should take you, oh, I'll tell you what I do need to do. I need to make that live first. Forgive me. I should be able to make that live. I'm going to look to my tech colleague. Wonderful. It's on the screen. This is all working too well, isn't it, so far? And hopefully, as you enter things into that, they should flash up on the screen in the form of a word cloud. There we go. And Peniel, what would you expect to see on these? What words do you think are coming up, or ideas that are coming up?
I think it's, as it is, it would be a mix of what does this mean, health in relation to, how's the correlation between health and well-being, and then some of the themes that you can work with, the purpose, the trust, the respect, and then there's the interesting word of happiness, right? And then I know from talking to some Japanese companies that also one way of defining well-being could maybe be anshin, the peace of mind. I like that definition also a lot. Happiness seems to be a popular word. And there is the interesting discussion, is that the responsibility of the workplace to create happiness? Maybe it's a good business case if people are happy. Maybe people produce more when they are happy and they collaborate better and so on. But Tira and I will get back to that also.
Wonderful. I'm just going to see if anything else comes in and see if anybody else is writing anything. This is really interesting, though, to see these things come out. And obviously, if it weren't obvious, the size of the word on the screen is a sign that that has been entered a few times. So I shall capture that. What I'll do is I'll leave it open for a minute or so, just so that we can gather that. But I would switch back. If anybody, I don't know if anybody, I saw a couple of people taking photos. Feel free to take a photo of the word cloud before I switch back.
But it also underlines the importance of definition, right? When we talk about workplace well-being, because there are so many different, of course, relevant words here.
Of course. Wonderful. I'm going to stop it there and again give my nod. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So, as I said, part of my role with IOSH is to put forward ideas and questions and so on, and it's for other people to tell me, yes, that resonates, or no, I don't agree with that. So the next section is just me doing something similar today. So this is a model that I use when talking about well-being. And the reason that I use it is because I think that it's really important for us to see well-being as something that is part of a natural progression. Increasingly at work, our leaders want things that are measurable. So if we're able to understand well-being as something that bears some relationship to things that go in at one end and things that come out at the other end, it's helpful because we can speak to those leaders in terms that they understand. So what I have here is kind of a simplistic view, but it helps us locate well-being in the context of both occupational safety and health in terms of kind of inputs and outputs, which is possibly where safety and health practitioners are most comfortable, and then in terms of outcomes and impacts, which is what business leaders want to see. So if I work from the inside of the model out, inputs are those measurable things, or the measurable steps that we take to create safe and healthy working conditions. So it may be in terms of the policies that we design, the routines that we establish, the interventions that we implement. And the outputs are the objective things that we measure that tell us something very basic about the effectiveness of the inputs. So for example, our rate of incidents, our near misses, our injuries, and so on. And again, Peniel, you touched on the Japanese term anzen or anshin. I think that this is closer to that Japanese term anzen. It's something that is more objectively measurable. As far as well-being is concerned, I would put it in this bracket of an outcome. The outcome is that we want workers not just to have safe and healthy, objectively safe and healthy working conditions, but for them to actually feel well. And I think this is where we would be closer to that Japanese term, anshin. Okay. This is made up of all sorts of different elements, and actually that word cloud that we have just carried out shows that people's understanding of what well-being encompasses is very broad. So it may be a case of people not only feeling safe and healthy, but they're also feeling stable, feeling valued, feeling supported, feeling competent, feeling secure, whatever it might be. And then finally, the impact is the downstream effect of workers feeling this way. And of course, you can look at that through a business lens, and our business leaders may be looking for, productivity, efficiency, performance, but we can also look at it through that personal lens as well. Workers flourishing, thriving, doing good work that feels rewarding and meaningful to them. So I like this, or I've put this slide together and this model together because I think it does those two things. It starts to try and connect safety at one end with business and performance at the other end, and tries to see a natural progression through them. Again, and this is the sort of the last slide where I will put too many ideas out there, but in terms of where we might influence well-being, just in the same way that there are lots of different kind of dimensions to workers feeling a sense of well-being, we also have lots of different areas in which we might contribute to it. So down the left-hand side here, there is the organizational level. Okay, so where well-being is approached across organizations, across different organizational stakeholders, yes, through safety and health professionals, but also through line managers, through HR professionals, through whoever else it might be. And we're talking here in terms of strategies, systems, culture at that broad level. The second group down, the green blocks, this is the operational level, so where worker well-being is managed through what is ultimately an enhanced safety and health management system. So where we still talk in terms of assessing risks, but we're talking in terms of risks to safety, health, and well-being, where we learn from safety, health, and well-being incidents. This is something that I want to come to later, where we respond to those incidents with safety, health, and well-being controls. The light blue group, third down, the holistic level. Again, if you think that safety and health practitioners and also line managers, maybe IT functions, other stakeholders within an organization have a part to play in well-being interventions, we can see that it cuts across all different aspects of a worker's employment. So it's something that can be influenced through their job design, through interventions that target worker engagement. It can be in the relationships that they have across teams and with management. And finally, maybe an aspect of well-being that goes beyond the workplace. So life well-being is what I've termed it here. So those aspects of somebody's life that they bring to work with them and then they take home at the end of the day. So such as their sleep, their diet, their family life, their lifestyle choices. And actually with the word cloud as well, it was pertinent that you pointed it out, Pernille, that these are things that maybe people think of when they think of well-being. And we have to ask the question of whether it is an employer's responsibility, and if it is, how do we influence that positively? So I think a final point from me on this is just to point out that I think it would be unreasonable looking at a slide like this to expect that occupational safety and health practitioners and professionals have full responsibility for workers' well-being across these four dimensions, but they can certainly support in some way, be it directly or indirectly. And with that in mind, I'm going to ask the following question, which hopefully, as I switch across, and again look across to my colleague, could we switch again, please? Which should appear. It's to ask this: which parts of that model on the previous slide do you think that you can influence most in your role? Organizational well-being, operational well-being, holistic well-being, or life well-being? Now, I may have my ideas on what I expect to see here, but it may not marry up with what people in the room think. Hopefully, this one should be a case of moving them around and putting them into an order. And again, Pernille, what would you expect to see?
I would expect to see it depends, because since we don't know your roles in here, it depends if you're a manager, if you're an OSH professional, if you are a worker, and how you would answer this. I think the operational well-being would be quite high, but then it's good to see that the organizational well-being is also high. What I'm thinking also, just for you to reflect on, is in your workplaces, have you defined well-being? Is there a company definition on well-being? Because I could argue that if you want to work with well-being, how can you work with this if you have not defined what it means? Because I think when it comes to safety, we have a long tradition of quite a clear picture of what safety is, or at least the lack of safety, maybe is more described. But I think this is really a point to make, that one way to start is to have the discussions in the workplaces. What do we mean by well-being? Maybe also make some decisions on what can we work with when it comes to well-being in the workplace, right? Because that would also be correlated to at which level do you work with these matters?
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things here again is that.
There's a question.
I would be even more provocative to say, do we need the word well-being without having a clear definition? Creating a new word and having different understandings. So at least for my corporate background, the CEO I closely worked with for the last 20 years, I would have had a hard way to argue with him that well-being is a good word for what you were showing there at the various levels.
Yes. Can you all hear in the room? Yeah? Or do I? Okay. No, it's...
Your English is better than mine.
No, it's not. Can I just comment on that?
Of course you can.
I think you have a really good point, and also because I think, and that goes for safety and health as well, when we define these words as something that is detached to worker performance, manager performance, then it becomes sometimes difficult, because then it's like we are asking for this to be something nice to have, because we have the worker performance and then we need to have the safety, health and well-being as something extra. So I actually agree with you that the terminology that we use for these things should be more integrated into the business language, because performance is maybe political, I don't know, in lack of a better word, but that we should use the same terminology. So good point.
Yeah, and I actually think that the point around language more broadly can be a real stopper, and can be something that actually distracts us from the issue at hand. I'm looking to a colleague in the audience whose workshop I was in this morning when we were talking about ethics, and talking about the fact that ethics can be a term that maybe alienates certain people who see it for being something different to what it actually is, and it feels like an extra thing to do, rather than something that should be kind of front and center of what we already do. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. And I will switch back. That's seamless. Okay, perfect. So with that in mind, what we will do, although my speaker's just gone missing. Where's Dr. Tira?
Yes, Tira, maybe I can start then.
Well, it's all running perfectly to plan, isn't it? There he is. Maybe he just wanted to make a grand entrance. Okay, so what we will do is we're going to move on to the next part of the session, which seeks to answer the following question, which is a really, really important question given what we've spoken about so far. So what is the business case for well-being? And the idea here is to go beyond that general belief within the OSH community that well-being should be prioritized within business. And it should then actually think about the degree to which it can be embedded within business models and strategies. So we have two short presentations, one from Peniel in a moment, but the first short presentation will be from Dr. Dira Pong Anant. Dira, feel free to expand on your title and background when you come up, but you're the board committee advisor at SurePat, so the Safety and Health at Work Promotion Association from Thailand. So Dira, do you want to come up, and the floor is yours.
Forward.
Yeah, forward.
Okay. Okay. Konnichiwa. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Pero, as well. Okay. First of all, it's my honor to be here. So thank you very much to invite me to be here today. It's nice to be back in Japan once again. Okay, many years ago, I came to Japan. Okay. Okay, so I think although we don't have too many people in the room, but I think it's the quality of the attendees that we have here today. I'm glad that we joined in the workshop. I think we can call it a very warm meeting for all the experts in this area. Okay, we get together today. All right. Okay, so I think it's I've been given. Topic, I think, is my topic is about the, hang on, I think it's a different topic a little bit. I think it's talk about the concern, the business concern, right? Why we concerned with the well-being. Okay, I think first of all, the original topic, we talk about evolution of human-centric in the workplace. Actually, evolution is a big word. You know, we have human evolution since the old age. Okay, we're not a planet of the ape. You know, still a human planet, and have a big evolution come to today. Well-being. Actually, the word well-being is very difficult to understand. In the old days, we talk about safety, health, occupational safety and health, occupational health and safety, you know, a long time ago. We never said about well-being. Right? Only more recently, I think that we started to introduce the word well-being. Even in Thailand, we never used well-being for a long time. Okay, but we had a previous act based on the Labor Protection Act, you know, and we talk about labor protection. More later on, we go towards a new act based on safety, health, and environment in Thailand. And in Thai language, when we translate the well-being, most people understand that means happiness. But as Chris showed us, you know, not only the happiness, we're talking about well-being. Well-being can talk about many aspects, with four different aspects, you know. We talk about organizational, holistic, you know, operational, and then the life well-being. There's so many things we need to understand. Okay, and anyway, before we get into that, just quick introduction with myself first, right? My name is Tira Ponganan. I'm representing SurePat. SurePat is Safety and Health at Work Promotion Thailand Association. We now under the patronage of the Royal Princess Sirinthorn, which is the daughter of the previous, our former king, Lamanda IX in Thailand. We've been in the area of safety and health, training and consulting, you know, particularly promoting safety and health in Thailand for nearly 40 years now. Actually, in this year in Thailand, in December, together with GISHW, Japan Industrial Safety Association, we will be organizing Thailand-Japan Work Safety Day in December in Thailand, Bangkok. Okay, welcome to go there as well. Right. Now, okay, come to my story today. Why and to what extent is well-being a business concern? Okay, I used to be one of the businessmen too. I used to be a vice president of Samad Corporation, you know, one of the biggest telecom company in Thailand. Now I understand what's the business people are thinking about, right? Okay, most business people are concerned with success, based on efficiency and effectiveness, from management of human resource, basically. And not only human resource that we manage, we want to get good return for the money we invest in the business, right? High productivity, high quality, high profitability, minimum cost if possible. Not only that, we also looking for a good image, good reputation for our company, for our business as well. Okay? And of course, we also have to comply with all the laws in order. And basically, for the long-term success, we talk about sustainability. Each of these have a lot of meanings, okay? But come back to human resource. Without human resource, the other success not going to happen, right? Okay, so human resource become the most important resource to our business now, right? Why? Human resource is everywhere. Not only workers. Workers are human resource. We have to depend on workers. We can't do anything without workers. We can't human. At the moment, we're not going to the new generation where no human workers anymore going to turn into AI or robot machines like that. Okay. But so far, we still need workers to do the work for us, right? And not only the workers are human, other people related to business also human, right? Our customers are human as well. Our suppliers also human. People associated with that in our society, in the communities, they're all human as well. Okay, so human resource become the most important for all business concern. It doesn't matter what you're looking for in terms of customers or supplier or whatever. Okay, another thing that in the workplace, we talk about workplace. In the workplace, if you know from the statistic, most accidents or incidents are due to human errors. Due to human errors, okay? Much less due to non-human, right? Some come from act of God, that we know that, right? But most of the accidents are still due to human errors, right? So the human error will lead to losses to our business, right? And another thing, not only the injuries and accidents you get from workers in the workplace, most workers are still sick or ill due to mental problems at work, due to stress. And one of the highest number of illness related to work in Thailand and a lot of in other countries as well, that talk about musculoskeletal disorders, right? MSDs, right? That is the biggest number of illnesses that come from human workers as well. Again, when the workers sick, that lead to the loss of business as well. So all these reasons make it very important that we need to consider safety, health, and good well-being of our human resources. Okay, that become our business concern, right? What aspects of well-being do business still need convincing on, right? As you saw earlier from your opinions and your thinking as well, that humans' well-being includes both physical as well as mental aspects. And we talk about 4 aspects we saw earlier, right? Okay, so it's not only related to safety and health and good environment, but also we need to fulfill other aspects of human well-being as well. In my understanding, in the workplace, we talk about personal goals, personal needs of the human being. For example, they have to have good job satisfaction, as you say, happiness, comfortability. Self-sufficiency is part of a well-being as well. You must have enough money to live on, enough food to eat, and so on. Okay, and another thing for human being, we talk about human dignity. Human dignity is part of well-being as well. Okay, so sometimes the money can't buy dignity, but sometimes trust and sincerity or friendliness and something that can give you dignity as well. Another thing that relates to needs and goals of persons could be related to religions or religious beliefs as well. Good friends, good family, social acceptance, and long-term future success in life, and of course sustainability. We can refer to one of the famous theory by Maslow, Maslow theory. The basic need of human being, what we need, right? So that gives us a more meaning of all aspect of well-being that business still need convincing on. Not only the safety and health, we need to understand more about other aspects of well-being as well, right? So in the new world, new evolutions taking place, a lot of changes taking place all the time, every day. So what could happen to the workplace in the future? What kind of impact we're going to get, right? We have a kind of influence, internal and external influence, from social, economic, political influences everywhere all the time. They have an impact on the worker, impacts on the business as well. And now we come to the new generations, right? We talk about new development of new technology like AI, artificial intelligence. Okay. A lot of people still not quite sure what the AI going to be good or bad, right? Actually, some people have start thinking about AI now. Actually, that's one guy I had to refer to, a very famous guy. He's Jeffrey Hinton. Okay? He used to work with Google. He resigned from Google now. and he tried to warn us that AI sometimes could be very harmful, could be dangerous. We have to be careful about AI as well. So that's another thing we need to understand, that AI can help us to replace the human workers, right? But we want to use it under our control, right? Actually, there's a big questions about happiness. It's about have good control behaviors of human beings. Control the way we work, the way we do, even AI, if we can control it, we can continue to be happy, right? So basically, come back to what you do. Okay, management control might be the final word that to need to understand how we continue to deal with our work well-being and so on. Okay, I think I wait to hear more about the other programs on on the well-being from the other speakers. Thank you very much. And if you have any more questions later on, we can continue later on. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Dira. Dira, do you want to, rather than going off the stage, you want to come and meet me in the middle on the chairs? Do you want to come back up and meet me on the stage? And Peniel, do you want to come and we'll hand straight over to you. No, you can. You've got your presentation. Right? Oh yeah.
Thank you. So I'll just. Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood. So I will have some reflections on. Oh. What did I do? Thank you. I will have some reflections on the same topic as you, Tira. And I will have the reflections from the point of view of working with the companies and the experiences that we have in Human House on some of this. There is always the discussion on return on investment. So can we show return on investment on safety, health, and well-being? And this has been a discussion for many years. And you can find quite some literature on this, but it's very difficult. Because what do you measure? Can you measure well-being? And even from a financial perspective. What I show you here is one attempt from the International Social Security Association. And this report is actually the foundation of the Vision Zero mindset. Maybe some of you have heard about this. The Vision Zero mindset is a global mindset of prevention that is now being implemented in nations, organizations, and companies around the world. And in this report, we can show a return on investment, but here it's called return on prevention, because Vision Zero is about prevention. And I like this term actually a lot. So the return on prevention for each euro, dollar, etc. invested in safety, health, and well-being, you can get a 2.2 return on investment or return on prevention. We all know about the direct costs, that is accidents, work-related sick leave. These are the lagging indicators that we work with. But what this report includes are also the more indirect costs. And I'm sure you can see all the different aspects. There is a cost if you don't comply with legislation. That is obvious. But there is also a cost to your company brand value. There could be a cost in terms of negative press coverage if you have accidents, if you have a high level of stress, if you have many conflicts and so on. Sometimes things hit the social media, things hit the press. We see now more and more customers demanding results, not only on safety, but also on ergonomics, well-being. So this is, of course, a business argument that you can show excellence. This is a term that most companies like to use when it comes to communicating with the customers, that you have a quality excellence level or whatever it is. There we will have to show the safety, health, and well-being excellence level as well. This goes hand in hand also with the social responsibility case that many companies would like to state. If you look at company websites, there are always people first. I mean, this is something that is in some form always described. If that really is so is another discussion, but there is this term. Then, of course, again, the direct costs of lower accidents and illnesses. But what the report also shows is the benefits on productivity and also maybe innovation. We should think about this because the world is changing so fast. So maybe innovation is a key competitive advantage, or it is for many of the companies sitting here. Innovation is a key thing. And how will you ask managers and employees to innovate if they are tired, stressed, have bad collaboration with their colleagues, and so on? So we need to start using these words. We also know from a strategic perspective that there is a global competition on attracting and retaining the best employees and managers. I said this in the beginning. But with the rise of social media, we need to think even more about this. There is a lot of job sites, Glassdoor Index, these type of job sites, where employees actually evaluate their companies. So if you want to have the best employees and you get a bad evaluation on social media or other sites, of course, this can affect your business. Finally, we get the help from the international investment community, because more and more of the larger investment companies are requiring leading indicators on good performance, safety, health, and well-being performance. Now I talk a little bit more than I planned actually about this, but there is an important point that I would like to make, that what I use this for is when I work with companies, I ask the managers to discuss this. What are their arguments? Because the answer will be different whether there is a CEO answering this, whether it's a department manager answering this, or it's a local supervisor answering this. But they all have to think about what of these arguments are relevant to themselves, because if we really want well-being to be integrated in our business, we need the managers to feel that it's important, not just say it, but to feel that it's important from a business perspective. So I put the link to the report here. We already saw this in some points, that another point about how well-being contributes to business performance is that we should always remember safety, health, and well-being are interrelated. This is also your point, and from the definition of well-being. We cannot talk about safety without talking about well-being or health, right? It all contributes to productivity, and we cannot have a good safety culture if we have if the workers are not thriving. How can we expect people to act in a good way if we don't have a good collaboration, if we don't have a good tone of voice, if we have the deadlines stressing people? I'm not saying we shouldn't have deadlines, but I mean, things are interrelated in this. And how can we have the good managers if they are stressed, if the mental well-being of the managers are not good? How can they contribute to achieve productivity and innovation? When it comes to the question if businesses are actually interested in working with well-being, I show you this tool. You can also find it in the Vision Zero guide on well-being. Of course, there is a link to it here. This tool is actually a dialogue tool where you can talk with managers and employees and having a discussion on how do you prioritize well-being and prevention of mental not well-being or illnesses and a bad psychosocial working environment. And what you should discuss is, you can start with safety, because most companies are more used to this, and ask, how is the prevention level on safety in our company? Is it at the passive level where we don't focus on safety at all? Is it at the reactive level where we only focus on safety if we have a lot of accidents? The active level is where we say safety first, but when it comes to real business life, it's not always safety first. It's more something we say, not what we do. If we look at the proactive level, this is where prevention is part of our way of doing things. And at the highest level, this is where safety is part of our strategic business plans, as I said before, in order to attract and retain the best employees, or whatever reason it could be. Why am I saying this now? Is that when we do this as a survey in Human House for companies and also as dialogues, and what we see is that a lot of companies, both in Denmark but also internationally, are quite high. They would place themselves quite high on the active, maybe the proactive level when it comes to safety. But when it comes to well-being, I have not yet seen one company that is above the active level, if you look at a general perspective. Meaning, well-being is something we say we do, but if you ask the workers, it's sometimes more in words than in action. So just to tell you. So I think there is an appetite, but there is a long way to go on well-being, and this is a way to pinpoint this. Yeah. So we don't have time to go through this whole list, but if I'm asked whether businesses need convincing on well-being and the need for well-being, I would say yes. And they actually need to be convinced on these 7 golden rules. They are called in Vision Zero. So what you can use this for is a sort of a checklist to actually look at your own company and say, are we actually taking this golden rule seriously in our company, and are we actually working with it? Do we work with management commitment, for example, to make managers commit to working with well-being? Are we doing well-being risk assessments? For example, if we have an organizational change, do we assess beforehand what that change could mean to workload, collaboration between departments, stress levels, and so on, to have this risk assessment approach? Do we have good targets on well-being? Do we have an ethical framework on how to work with well-being? Do people know if they get harassed or bullied, where to go? What if I feel stressed? Do I know where to go? Do we include well-being in our procurement? For example, if we invest in new IT systems, does anyone think about what would be the well-being consequences of new IT systems, for example? Do we create the knowledge base we need in the companies? That's the 6th rule. And finally, do we involve employees in the discussions on well-being? So I think we can not answer 100% on all these in our company, so we need to start working with these different areas. Yeah. So, or maybe you will explain the next one, Chris, or should I?
I think it's I think it's a follow-on, isn't it? This one to the question. It's really, I think it's really important for us. Well, in fact, before we go on to that, let me just thank you first of all for your presentation, and you can come and join us if you want. Thank you.
Okay.
And then if you come over to us, Pernille. Let me go for a couple of questions first, and then we'll do the audience participation just before we swap over. A couple of you have picked out some points in there that I've just made a note of, particularly about the sort of moral argument for focusing on well-being seems to be very clear, but the competing priorities of businesses would seem to kind of sometimes be a counterweight to that. So I had a first question that was just around where, in your experience, and Pernille, I'll come to you first on this, and then Dira, maybe I'll come to you afterwards. But where, in your experience, well-being seems to rank in terms of businesses' priorities at the moment?
I think it's very company-specific, or very workplace-specific. I think you can find all ends of the continuum on this, where with companies at least not having made the decision to focus on this, and then companies where it's a strategic priority, right? Mm-hmm. From my experience, and I'm sure that the rest of the panelists can join later in this, it is not industry specific or company size specific. I think it's more like even the priority of the board of directors, if this is something, or even down to a priority of the single manager, if this is a priority. I think that many companies, they would benefit from starting with safety, because this is the area that you work with. And then, as you said, actually not to call it, maybe, should we call it well-being or safety, or what should we call it? But to talk about, we have this production line, we need to make these products by the end of the week. How do we do this in a good manner? Does it require that we talk to each other? Yes, maybe that's a good idea. Does it require that we have a good tone of voice? Yes, maybe that's also a good idea, so that we implement it, but starting with the tasks at hand
Thanks, Pernille. And Dira, I'll come to you with the same question. There should be a microphone down at your side as well. Where you think well-being ranks in terms of priority for businesses in your experience, maybe from the Thai perspective, or maybe more broadly.
Yep. Thank you. I think like I showed on the slide previously, when we talk about 3 dimensions, safety, health, and well-being, it depends on who you are, what you are. If you have a big business, small business, you have different type of priorities, okay? But for the minimum priority for the very small business, the first thing they think of to survive, okay? So their priority is to survive. That means they have to at least comply with the laws, okay? So the law concerns with safety and health, basically, okay? They have to comply with the Safety Act, basically. Well-being might be the last thing for them to be concerned with. Okay, but when you have done that, you have passed that level, come to become a middle-sized or a large company or business. Okay, they have done that. They got enough money to spend on. They comply with the law. They done everything. Now they have to concern with as I said, maximum efficiency, maximum effectiveness in their business. So that well-being start to come in to fulfill what they haven't got. Okay. And as I said now, since the Vision Zero strategy, convinced that not only safety and health, we have to consider the last one related to well-being as well, to reach the ultimate goal of business success. Okay, so well-being we push us to the maximum level of the success that for the last business they can achieve that.
Thanks, Dira. I don't know whether, Pernille, you had any further. It looks like you were about to come in on.
No.
I guess the follow-up question that I had, and then I'll come to the audience if there are any questions from the audience, about how important, therefore, the question of cost is in relation to well-being. How you talked earlier on about the kind of return on investment and businesses wanting to see that. How central do you think the question of cost is in terms of prioritizing well-being?
That's a very good question, because what does it cost? Because it doesn't cost anything to ask your workers every day, how are you doing?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a good return on investment on that one, right?
that's right.
So actually, I think my experience is that it's actually more a cost discussion when we talk about safety investments, or indoor climate investments, or ventilation investments, and so on. So I think it's more a matter of that companies are a bit reluctant to go into this area to discuss it, because if we start discussing about stress levels and what will come out of that. So I know that to teach managers how to work with this, I think actually this is more of a barrier, that the knowledge level and how to work with it is more of a barrier than the actual. Of course, it will cost to have consultants to guide you and so on. But when it comes to return on investment, I think safety costs are more expensive.
And I wonder, therefore, whether actually the question around the size of the organization becomes really interesting, actually, because then for smaller organizations who are perhaps more agile and more able, or maybe more set up, and it sort of comes back to the point that we were making earlier on about the language here. That well-being interventions may well be happening just not under that name.
Yes.
And I think there's a dimension to that. What I will do, we're going to switch over the panel shortly and bring our other speakers up on stage. Whilst we have Pernille and Dira with us, are there any questions from the audience that spring to mind? There will be opportunity later on as well, but was there any?
Actually, I'd like to add a little bit to Pearl's saying about the cost. Actually, as far as I understand, cost for safety and health a lot more than for well-being. Exactly. And well-being is not necessarily related to large company or big company in terms of cost. I know some family business, very small family business, have very good well-being. They don't spend any money at all. They just love their worker, and the worker love them. They don't need any money. They're treated like family, people in a family. Yes. People are happy, and they're willing to do anything without costing any money. Okay, so actually, well-being is the most important thing that people don't realize, that sometimes you can get it without costing anything, right? But safety, good safety, you spend a lot of money for safety, health. Spend for the medical bill or the insurance. But well-being, sincerity, trust, love, they give that. It costs nothing. So really.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and it almost makes you question whether we overcomplicate this to some extent. Some really useful insight. What we will do at this point is I'm going to thank Dira for now. You will come back obviously later on. Yep. So a round of applause, please, for Dira.
Thank you. Thank you.
For Pernille also. And what we will do, we'll do a quick change around. So we will invite our other speakers to join us on the stage. And grab a microphone. And then go forward. In a second, yes.
When the audience will have a question, please ask them from the microphone, because we are recording. So ask them to come up to the microphone.
Yeah.
We are ready.
That's fine. Sorry? Oh, yeah. So, now it disappeared. So, you have already been briefly introduced, but maybe you would like to say just a few words about yourselves. If we start with you, Stine.
I just want this microphone. It works now? Well, my name is Stine Mosman. I'm a colleague to Pernille. I'm a psychologist. I've worked with business psychology for the last 15 years. So when I'm not speaking in conferences like this, I work in companies, usually in Denmark, but also abroad. And it's typically with the conflicts in companies and in the areas, in the companies that have great conflicts, where you see bullying, harassment, stress, a high level of sick leaves. So that's where I go in. It's where it's, you know, all the dirty places. That's where I go. And then I work with leaders. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Thomas?
And my name is Thomas. I'm heading up a team called Health in a global Danish-based or Danish headquartered global healthcare company called Novo Nordisk. And what I mean by heading up a group called Health is that we have, in my team, we divide it into physical well-being and mental well-being. And I would like to get back to the definition of well-being later. So so that's me, and I've been with that company for 11 years almost now. Over to you, Malcolm.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Malcolm Staves. I'm the VP of Health, Safety and Wellbeing, even though it's not on the title, for L'Oreal worldwide. So that includes manufacturing, warehousing, R&I, admin sites, as well as the sales force. Oh, you want me to start again? Did you not hear me? It's going to be stronger in my voice.
It's for the online audience.
So anyhow, to go back, so I'm Malcolm Staves. I'm the Global VP for Health, Safety and Wellbeing for L'Oreal, which includes the manufacturing, warehouses, R&I, the admin, the sales force. And what's quite particular about it, I'm going to mention it now, is it's not the same approach for different people working in different activities. So I've been in, like I said, L'Oreal 16 years. I've only worked in operations and industry all my life. And I fell into well-being a number of years ago, right? Yet I found that we were actually already doing it because it made good sense for health and safety a long time ago as well. So,
Thank you. And actually, I will start by interrupting my own thoughts on where we were supposed to start, because you said that this about definitions on
Yes.
well-being.
I
I
think
think maybe we should start there.
I'm glad to. I think it was a great question, and I would like to compare it to WHO's definition of feeling well. What is that? That's the absence of disease, because it's super hard to define what criteria do you have to live up to be well. And I would say the same goes for well-being. So it's hard to define what is well-being, but we pretty clearly know what it's like not to feel well-being at work. And that's actually how we define our goals and targets. We know that in mental well-being, not feeling well is when you're stressed, have burnout, stuff like that. So we measure the symptoms of stress. For physical well-being, it's if you're feeling pain. If you feel pain in connection with work, that's not physical well-being. So we measure how many of our employees report that they feel pain in connection with work. That's a good way to start, and it's some kind of definition, but you just turn it around, and it's a good way of working with it. And you can say there's a lot of scientific evidence showing what factors we know what will take you to the bad place. That has been proven in a lot of scientific evidence that, for instance, when we talk mental well-being, we know all the psychosocial factors that are important, and if they're not there, it will result in a lack of well-being. And that's how we actually use it. So we do in our employer survey, we point out what psychosocial factors are lacking in your team. That's where you need to focus. And I think it was a great point. Stop me, because now I'm just going to continue, but I think it was a great point you made, and you too, in saying the training of first-line leaders is so important, especially in mental well-being, because I think for most, it's not bad will. They just don't know how to do it. Most of them have actually been promoted. Maybe they were a very good specialist. They were promoted to be a leader, and they don't know how to lead. And I'm speaking as a global company, we are not good enough in training our first-line leaders. That's where we have our focus now, because that's where it's super efficient. We can see that we are still working in a lagging way, going out to pinpoint the areas that are not working, but then we train them, and then we can see it actually works. So again, that's how we address it. Yeah.
But just to comment on that, I think this is exactly where we all need to be better at speaking the business language, because it is a business language to measure what is lacking, to do gap analysis on, you're lacking on this and this and this. What can you do to improve that? You can work with the skills of the managers, and it becomes very quantitative and very specific. So I think we should all learn from this to try to specify well-being as this is one way of doing it, but I think it's a really good way. And do you all know the definition of WHO from back from 48? No? Yeah. No, I don't remember the whole definition, but I remember that it's both the physical, psychological, and social well-being. So that, in that sense, it's a good definition also, right? So you guys, do you have any thoughts on the definition on well-being before we go to the actual question I was going to ask you?
No, not about that. But I think when we talk about workplace and well-being, it's a very individual focus we get. So I like it when we talk about psychosocial work environment instead, because the well-being or the consequences on the individual is a consequence of something not working in the organization. And that's actually where we can focus.
Yes.
So we see the individual or the well-being within the individuals as a consequence or as a symptom of something else. So that's where I think it's interesting to look into.
Yeah. And oh, sorry, Malcolm, do you have?
No, I'm a little bit aligned. But the challenge is, when you talk about multinational businesses, is it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to different countries.
Yes.
And that's the big challenge. So when you're talking about integrated into business like we were before, I think really the kind of experience that we have is it's a challenge. You know, on mental health, for example, in some countries, it's not even on the agenda. Mm-hmm. Other ones it is. And I think we need to learn how to adapt and be much more flexible. So I think even the definition of well-being could change depending on which country you ask.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe it should be a country-specific dialogue, right? Or a definition. I know that's difficult when you're a global company. I know.
A beauty company. But if I can just to open up the discussion a bit more, our approach has been quite... We identified back in about 2009, 2010, that many of our accidents were coming through what we were calling sort of human factors. People not being really at work, situational awareness, bringing your baggage from home and coming to work and you've been up all night because your children have been in hospital or you've had an argument, so you're not yourself. Therefore, you put yourself at risk from a safety point of view. And that's where we started. And we started in 2010 for our senior leadership to introduce into them the idea of low-level signals. How do you detect low-level signals in yourself and others? Oh. And we made it a leadership approach. So our first approach into this was pure leadership.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. And that actually leads me to the first question.
Segue.
No, because what we would like to discuss is what are the good well-being programs? And a challenge for you is that not all in the audience are from global or multinational companies. So is there any universal thing we can say about good well-being programs that can be adapted to whether you are a small company or a larger company? So go ahead, guys.
Well, like you said, you don't need to over complicate things. Keep it simple. For some, it would be start by saying, "How are you doing?" That's pretty easy to start there. But in general, as a global company, and I to some extent I agree, it can be very difficult across cultures, of course, but you can still find something that works across cultures as well. It's of course a good idea getting senior management buy-in, because otherwise we risk it just being words, like you also mentioned that, yeah, they say this, but do they really mean it? They need to show it, they need to support it.
And sorry, in Novo, what is the buy-in from or what kind of arguments do you hear the senior leadership team say about this? So what kind of arguments could they use in the audience?
I would say, and very honest, we do see senior management, some members saying the same thing, people first, and people are, yeah, you say that. But we track this, And that's where it makes a difference. And where you show as a senior leader that this matters to you, you want to know, how are my business faring? Are we doing well? Or is it just something we're saying?
Yes,
If they don't really care and they just want to say something, you don't spend resources tracking, measuring, reporting. And that would have been my next step in this journey, is to set, and again, keep it simple, set simple targets and goals. Maybe we have one question for stress in our employee survey, describing a state where you don't feel comfortable, and asking people, have you felt like this? And then that's where we start. And for the ones, and again, we would like to be more preventive, but this is a starting point.
Yes.
So we start by addressing the ones that are actually very high in these stress numbers. And there I would about to say, train the leaders on how to actually work with it. And then you can do it to different extents depending on how many resources you have as a company. If you don't have that many resources, maybe it's just the worst 1%. That's where you start. And in that respect, again, in a global perspective, we can see that no matter where in the world where we have gone out and actually addressed this, it works.
It works.
So it's about giving people the right tools and telling them, this is important to us, this is important to the company, and we're going to track how you're doing.
Yeah. And as I remember, it's actually a scientifically validated question you have on stress from this
single-item question, yeah.
Finnish study. And maybe, because this is an official one, we can share this afterwards, that one question to be asked. I think that's an excellent point. This is where you could start talking about this. Yeah. Malcolm?
I can go. So we have I have 100,000 people. And it ranges from across 147 different countries, so we're talking about the cultural differences. And what we've found is, like you were saying earlier, if my boss comes up to me and he asks me, how am I doing? He asks the right kind of questions, it makes a big difference, and across cultures. So we set a frame, and we're top down with the frame, right? So for example, all our countries will have EAP programs, which are available to all employees. Unfortunately, less than 1% of people actually use EAP programs, believe it or not. It's very inefficient for the cost involved very often, right? But what we can do is train our leaders to see the low-level signals. We can put in place the system that they can act locally and put things in place that is relevant to the people locally. So it would be a failure of any organization, I'm sure you would agree, to put in really strict rules of what we're going to do about well-being. On the other hand, when you give them the frame and the flexibility to do local and adapt to local culture, if a local culture doesn't get it, because it's not a priority, it won't go forward. We actually, at this moment in time, we accept that because we're moving forward bit by bit.
Yep.
We're not going to be perfect, but we're on the right kind of track. So it's very important to have the strategy, the frame, and the intention and the commitment of the senior management to say, yes, this is important.
Yeah.
And finally, the way it's working fairly well, I would say, also because we cooperate with a load of different departments. It's not just health and safety, because health and safety, well, before well-being was more seen as HR, driven by HR. Health and safety in L'Oréal is better at deploying and getting things done at the coalface, at the shop floor. So the marriage of HR and health and safety working together is very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. And I think it's going out finding people to work with, cooperate, collaborate, and do it as a bigger team. And don't think that health and safety is going to be able to do this on its own.
Yeah, that's a good point also. Which is relevant both for large organizations and smaller organizations. Yeah. Or just before, Thomas, was that a reaction to Malcolm, and then we will move to Stine?
I very much agree, and we have the same issues with the employee assistance program, that people don't know about them. So that's a place to start. Just a comment in regards to the business case perspective of why do we see companies using more money on safety. to my opinion, it's because there we have strict legislation.
Yes.
If you don't do it,
Yeah.
it has a consequence.
Yeah.
It's down to the consequences. On well-being, there's no consequence many times, I have to say. So you will find managers leading by fear, saying to people,
Yes.
you have to do this, and the managers are being measured on how much they deliver.
Yes.
So the output. No one cares. In 2 years, they've moved on to another department,
Yes.
to be brutally honest. So if you do not measure how they are doing on well-being, they will not prioritize well-being. What is being measured is being done, right?
Yes.
So I think that combined with what you said, Malcolm, is part of the explanation why people are doing it or not doing it.
Yeah. True.
Can I add something? Or
Yes.
do you want to go?
And then no, it's
Only it'll
okay.
be-
And
it'll
then
be-
I will move on to Stine.
It'll be very quick. The problem that we have the same with what we call the pulse survey, right? The problem is it's once a year. Yet safety statistics and health statistics are monthly, right? So it
true.
it has bigger volume. It's in the face of everybody all the time.
Yeah,
so
that's
we need
good.
to change that as well. Huh?
I've never thought about that actually, but that's a good point. It's true.
Once a year is not enough.
Yeah, true. Good point. So, no, it's okay. So, Stine,
Well-
in your opinion, good well-being programs, what do they include?
Besides, I agree with you. When I know you have big global companies, but your companies are also small departments, different places in the world. So what we do is analyze these small areas, or small and small. It could be 500 people. So when we look into it, we would look into the 4 different levels, or maybe 5. The context, what are the history in the organization, the organizational level. Do you stand in the middle of changes? Do you have enough resources? Can you recruit people? So on the organizational level, then we have talked a lot about leadership. How do you make good leaders? I think it's like being a host to a party. Leaders need to host a party every day they go to work. You know, you need to invite the right people to the table. You need to bring food to the table, or salary, or developmental possibilities. You need to like each other to be able to cooperate. So the leaders are actually hosts in their own little parties. So what we do is analyze the context, the organization, develop leaders, and the designing of teams. Do we have the right people to work together? Because if you have the right team, you don't really have to do that much. They work well together. And if these factors are not in place, then you will see the consequences of lack of mental health and difficulties in conflicts and so on. So I would say good well-being programs look through all these levels in every organization.
Yeah. And then in Denmark, and in many other countries, I'm sure as well, we have quite a clear definition of what is the psychosocial working environment factors, right? Because when you're talking about, Thomas, the lack, what lacks, maybe Stine, could you elaborate on for the audience, how do we see it in our part of the world, these factors that you need to think about?
I'll see if I can remember.
Yeah.
But we have 6 job factors that we always look into. It's meaningfulness, it's predictability, is the right amount of demands, it's do you have the right influence, do you get recognized on your job? Was that 5 or 6?
I didn't count.
5, and yeah, the last one is coming to me in a minute or two.
I wanted to see if I could help you, but
But you cannot. And then the different part, because these are factors that people need to get fulfilled when they go to work. We call it job factors. And then we have to have these 3 pillars that the company needs to stand on, which is trust and cooperation and fairness. So if you have these factors available on the workplace, then people feel quite good when they go to work. Yeah.
And your excellent word of dignity. I love that a lot to spend. Okay. Yeah, and we will have questions. I forgot to say that to start with. We will have questions after the break, because you will get a break in a while, and then you can think about questions for this excellent audience. So I will just continue with the next question. I think we still have time because we started a little later, right? So you already talked a little bit about it, but for the audience to know, how should different stakeholders work together on well-being in the company? Is it just the HR and the OSH professionals, or how? Do you have any good advice to the audience on, making this collaboration work between different stakeholders also?
I can maybe say the way we humbly started, and it really is very early stages. HR, we were having more and more accidents, incidents that were, I'm going to say, not physical sort of health and safety. Sort of, it was something happened because a person was stressed, they were distracted, they were elsewhere, etc. So we needed to raise the profile. So when we went to HR, it was like, well, we've got this great program which L'Oreal calls Share and Care, and which is deployed worldwide to different levels and different degrees, but it doesn't penetrate. It's one of those programs that looks good on paper and all the rest of it, and it's worked really well on benefits and stuff like that, but not on the well-being side or on the mental health side. So we took it into our own hands. And sometimes the way to get other people to move is to actually start to push the boat, right? So we were just about to release our we call it mental well-being, mental care guidelines by health and safety, when HR came along and said, oh, we want to be involved as well.
Oh, yeah,
just
that's
as we
the
were
way
going to
to
do it, right? In the meantime, what we'd already done, we've got a member of the exec that was on board about it. And the reason he was on board was because he had mental health problems in his family.
Yes.
So one of the tips is, if you're trying to move an agenda, whether it be well-being or mental health or some aspects, try and find a sponsor that can relate to it.
Yes.
Right, that's very, very important. We then set the frame, right? And now HR are on board, they want to work with us, but we're training our managers. We want to, everybody says, if it's important for my boss, it's important for me. Right? Everybody says line managers need to get involved. So what we decided with our well-being and our mental health programs is we won't do it without them. So it's not going to be driven by EHS. If it takes us 5 years longer to put it in place, it'll be driven through the management, starting with the mancoms at the various sites, at the country level. It'll take a long time, but it'll be more sustainable.
Yeah.
It's the long game rather than the short game.
Oh, but that's something to remember, right? But is that then driven now by the HR, this training program, or is that?
The training program, the one that I mentioned earlier for the senior leaders, is a purely health and safety program.
Oh, it is.
It's at a famous. It's outside of L'Oreal. It's actually done at a place called INSEAD, which is at Fontainebleau in Paris, which is an executive college, and we've currently put 1,500 senior execs through it. It's been going for now 15 years. So it started with stress management, because 15 years ago we were talking about stress and the burnout and all the rest of it, and now it's transformed into well-being and mental health, etc. And it's 5 days, right? But it also links it in with safety and leadership. So we don't dissociate health and safety and well-being from leadership and from responsibilities and accountability. And it was designed that way. When we first started it, if I can, it was who are you, health and safety, to talk to us about leadership and about how we're going to manage these things. Now everybody says it's the best ever leadership training program that they do within L'Oreal. Yeah. So, and it's the strategy, it's the framework, and it's the way it's built, and trying to say, okay, maybe we're trying to change the world one step at a time. Yeah. And if I'm trying to change the way that you think, the way that you do things, it's not because I tell you to do it. It's a slow process sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's...
and that we have to take that into account. And that's what I don't come and talk to me in 25 years and I'll tell you whether it's been successful.
But I think we see many programs that are, you have the leadership programs and then you have the health and safety training programs, right? So this is an excellent point to take home as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and talking to stakeholders across the company, I fully agree, but sometimes pushing something into others that has their own agenda they're working on. Sometimes it's also, like I said before, starting with a very little first step, and then perhaps showing in part of the organization with someone who would like to work together with you that it actually works. Yes. It's a lot easier selling a winning story to someone having proven already that it works in the company. That's part of it. Something else in regards to collaborating with different stakeholders across the company. I think, which you also mentioned, Pernille, is the interest from investor relations. They are really good at pushing agenda points upwards. So if it's interesting to investor relations, it's typically interesting to senior management. So you will have some of these external collaborations where there is an investor group reaching out to you saying, okay, we have benchmarked you against other global companies, leading companies in the world, and this is where you're ranking.
Yeah.
Typically, global companies would like to rank high because this actually transforms into investments into the company by shareholders, because these people are representing a lot of shareholders.
Yes.
So this will actually move the agenda, and one of them are particularly looking at mental well-being.
Yeah.
So very efficient, and sometimes you just need to, if that doesn't work, try something else, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think, sorry, Stine, just because what you said before is also a point for you to take home, that sometimes us as health and safety professionals, we always talk about what is not working or what is lacking. But most board of directors, if you ask, they would like to have the success stories, as you tell, that this is a case, this works, please expand this into the rest of the organization, instead of us as health and safety professionals always talking about what we are not having, or the investments that we do not have yet, and so on. So it's a change of mindset from problem to solution focused, right? So Stine?
Yeah, if I should add something to this discussion, I would say that especially when we talk about mental well-being or mental illness, I think every employee is a stakeholder in the company, because it can be very difficult to see it because you try to hide it when you're the person that is actually struggling. So it's your good colleague who sees it. And if you have a good psychological safety in the team, then your good colleague will, point to the leader and say, I think you have to talk to this person because I think she's not feeling well. But it needs everybody to look, not control everybody, but, love and have feel care for your colleagues. Yeah. So everybody is stakeholders when you talk about mental well-being.
And that is so important, and that goes beyond, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a small or medium or larger size company, right? And then, so maybe it's the psychological safety that you also have to work on, right? Maybe you can define just a little bit what it is, psychological safety?
Yeah, we're talking about, do you work with psychological safety? Do you know what it is, or is it a new term? Yeah, many people know what it is. But it is actually the feeling of being part of a team or a group where you can say out loud where you feel and think and what your ideas are, and you know that they will be taking, people around you will take them well, or they will reflect on them, or you can have great discussions where you disagree, but you can go out of the room and be best friends afterwards. So it's a feeling of trust and safety and being able to share whatever you think. Yeah. That's psychological safety. Yeah.
So please go home and fix that in your companies. So on that happy note, I think, Chris, is it time for the break? Or yeah, is it? So since we have this panel with very experienced people, please, in the break, think about questions for them or commenting some of the points made here, because we will have quite some good time afterwards for you to answer questions from the audience. I know you're not that many people, but I'm sure you can find some questions in the break to ask. And do you want to tell the practicalities of that?
Yeah, so what we'll do in terms of the break, it's 20 to 4 now. We'll still have the best part of 20 minutes, so we'll come back at 4. Again, using the Slido, although we can take questions in the room as well. But if you have any either questions or experiences or thoughts that you wanted to share around your own kind of well-being challenges, questions, experiences, then please use the Slido and we'll put them to the panel after the break. But for now, should we just thank our panel again?
Yes.
And we will join you back at 4 o'clock. Thank you for coming back. What I think that we had decided and we've spoken about is that we will continue with the discussion. We've had a couple of questions from the audience. We'll continue with those. I have a couple of questions myself. I think it makes perfect sense and is a good use of time, seeing as we've got such an esteemed panel, to make the most of having people here. We may finish slightly early, but let's crack on. Yeah? So thank you, and thank you to our speakers for coming back as well. You can. Okay, so the first question that we'd had through the Slido, and thank you, it does say anonymous, but I know who it is now. So the question is around metrics and how we report on well-being measures to business decision makers. So the specific question was, can you tell us more about how your company measures and reports up to the business decision makers on well-being? How does it know it's succeeding? Am I okay to start with you on that, Thomas, in terms of reporting up to decision makers?
Yeah, I did touch upon it that we do, when it comes to especially mental well-being, we have a single item measuring symptoms of stress. So in this, you can say for senior management, we report on all our executive vice president areas. So different areas of business, production, sales, finance, and there it is brought forward at one of their executive management meetings, so they can see how are the different areas faring. And that's also where our CEO will address this and say, aimed at one of them, saying, you are far behind. We need to see action from you. But the way we have approached it is to actually agree with the areas that we have a relative target of 10%. So if I was at 20 and you were at 10, I needed to come down from 20 to 18, where you needed to come from 10 to 9. And that makes sense to the areas, instead of saying, okay, in 2 years' time, everyone needs to be at 10%. Because then some of them would give up to begin with. And I think that's an important part of it, making it realistic for the areas to show improvements. And Malcolm was touching upon this as well. You shouldn't expect it to be completed within a year or two. This is an ongoing thing. Continuous improvements all the time. And as long as the areas are moving in the right direction and hopefully fulfilling the targets, then we're happy.
Wonderful. And a few questions came to my mind as you were talking. Rather than me jumping in with those, I should look to our guest whose question it was. I don't know whether you had any follow-up questions that you wanted to ask now or whether you wanted to ask later. Or feel free to just pop your hand up or shout out.
And I might add that, yes, we are only doing this once a year, but we have a structured process, so we know that it's being brought to senior management attention. So first we will go out and have meetings with each and every one of the EVP areas, the different areas, together with the responsible person. We will sit down, show them the data, ask them to set actions for the coming year, and then afterwards that will be presented at the executive management meeting. So that's a way to keep focus on it.
That's really interesting. I don't know if any of our other colleagues on the panel wanted to come in on that question specifically. Deirdre, did you have something that you wanted to say on that?
On how to measure?
On measuring and reporting to others. Yeah.
Actually, okay, at the moment I'm not running any company, but I used to be vice president on human resources operation a long time ago, and also a consultant on the HR as well. So I know that most companies, they don't measure the well-being directly. What they measure is called job satisfaction. Job satisfaction. They do a survey on how people feel, about everything, about their performance, about welfare, about money, about salary, everything. That related to I think related to well-being. I think more recently in Thailand, we introduced Vision Zero, and I think him was sitting there, Vision Zero, and we introduced the term well-being, safety, health, and well-being. And we invited more than 100 companies to involve with the Vision Zero strategy. So we have this Vision Zero strategy measurement, like a 7 golden rule, to measure well-being. And we use that as a measurement, how to measure according to the 7 golden rule. So we can have a different indicators set up then, only more recently. But before, we simply measure just on the job satisfaction.
Yeah,
Stina.
and at a more practical level, in smaller companies, we are recommending that because we call psychosocial work environment or mental well-being like a wild problem or wicked problem, it always changes. So we would say that you should work with it weekly or every 14 days. Ask people 2 simple questions. How is your mental balance and how is your workload? And then just talk about these 2 questions. Very simple. And then you can work with it all the time in your leadership. So that's not something that goes to the CEO, or you could do it in smaller companies, but it's the way to work with it in a daily basis, in a practical way, and a simple way.
And I think that's really interesting, the difference between the sorts of well-being information and data that would be relevant to leadership and the sorts of information that would be much more relevant to line managers and those who are experiencing things or interactions with workers on a day-to-day basis. So on that point specifically, the sort of regular data points, the one thing that always comes to mind with these sorts of things is the fact that sometimes we can obtain data points, but we don't know what to do with that. We don't know how to make that data actionable. So you can ask that question, and does it actually lead anywhere? The questions that you've just suggested, Stina, around, what is your mental balance? What is your workload? With something like that at a team level, if you had, a team of 20, and there are patterns in there of people saying, do you know what, my workload is very high, and they have answered that over a period of time as well, it starts to get us closer to actions.
And
go on, Stina, and then Tom.
Yeah, it's just that's how it works. So we are sitting in a team, and they are sharing how they actually feel. So the workload can be given to somebody else, and if your mental balance is in are you green, are you yellow, or are you red? And if you are red, then it leads to a conversation with your leader to how can I help you? If you're yellow, we are following you in the next couple of weeks to see if it changes. And if you're green, it's just perfect. So that's it's a toolbox, a simple toolbox.
Absolutely. Pania was like a school student putting your hand up. Then
yes. No, just another perspective of measuring or metrics is that you mentioned the Vision Zero way of working and the 7 golden rules, as we discussed before. What we can see is that there are 2 metrics that goes for safety that are especially important within the Vision Zero mindset as well. And that is the manager safety walk. And then it's the meetings where the manager or the supervisor discusses safety with his workers. But what you can include there, it's just a very practical tip, is that if you have the management safety walks, you can include some well-being questions within that. So if you are used to doing this sort of processes, then start just by adding 1-2 questions, and the metrics could then be, I have one client where they measure the number of managers that have included well-being in the safety walks, just to start somewhere. Then you can argue what is the quality of this talk, but just to start measuring the frequency of well-being being part of safety walks or toolbox meetings, department meetings, whatever it is, where you are used to talking about the work distribution of the day or the production deadlines or whatever, to start having well-being themes there. But my experience is that you need to teach the managers specifically how to include this and what type of questions to include that. I work with a meat processing company, and even at the factory level, the factory managers, they have no idea how they should include this in their conversations with the managers. So we needed to make a checklist or 4 questions for the factory managers, that these are the themes that you can include if you want to talk about culture or well-being or some of the more not so easy things to talk about. What should you then include on this list, and to start from there?
Thomas.
Yeah, I was just going to share. I do this in my own team. We have a 3x3 matrix where we have workload on one axis and well-being on the other. And just to say, if you are high on workload for 2 weeks in a row, that will result in a meeting with me, where we look at why are you that high workload. So it might be that when I talk to you, then you would tell me that you feel fine. It's just really high, but it's a project and you need to finish it. You feel good, and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It will be done next week. Then we agree, okay, that's fine. But it might also be that you tell me that too many tasks, I don't really know what to do. And then it's my job to prioritize and say, okay, stop doing this, or we will redistribute and have someone else doing the task for you. And that is super hard. I give the introduction for new managers in the company as well, globally, and many of them say, it's so hard regarding workload. What do we do? And that's the message I tell them, to say, it's your responsibility as a manager to prioritize the tasks for the team members. So you need to do this. And if you do not have enough resources in your team to actually fulfill the task, you need to say to your manager, and then it's their responsibility to find out. And again, you have to rely on the psychological safety to really be open and honest about this. But it's a starting point.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. So the line, I often find that conversations around well-being so often come back to line managers. And in the conversations that we've just had in terms of something maybe flagging up around workload, you're right. Two weeks where you feel like you've got a higher workload may not be a problem for. So some people want that. Some people, and it's maybe there's a side point here about what well-being means to different people and in different industries. That some people will thrive on that higher workload of stress. Yes, they might need to be sort of handled a little bit differently, but again, it's down to the line manager. So I guess a question that comes to mind is just around the extent to which line managers also just need to be kind of fluent in this language around well-being, and so that they're having these conversations with their direct reports, their workers, in a way that feels very intuitive and natural, rather than something that you add as the last question of a conversation. By the way, how are you? That sort of thing. I wonder if anybody has any reflections on that. The sort of the need for people to be fluent in that language of well-being. Dira, go on.
I think it's a big question about how and what you're mentioning about well-being, because as we try to define exactly what the well-being means, as you talk about at least 4 aspects of well-being, and they all measure differently. And why you want to measure and who want to measure? What's the purpose of measuring? See, at the moment we don't have to measure it, because it's not required by law. It's not compulsory. Because safety, health, you have to measure because there's a law that relates to that. How you measure well-being, right? You can't. Only certain part of safety and health, certain part of well-being had to be measured according to the laws. Yes, but not the whole part of well-being, because so many aspects of well-being, it's not compulsory to do it. And who you want to measure it? What for? That's a big question you have to define. There's so many. Before we talk about the level of well-being, I think as far as I'm concerned, well-being is about human needs, human expectation, human requirements, just satisfaction. I think we had to go back to 5 levels of Maslow's theory of basic needs, So that's how to define the well-being. Again, that's an example of life and holistic well-being. Yeah. But organizational and operational levels, there's another different story again. You know, it's a big job to define well-being. Who you want, why you want to do it, how you're going to do it. It's a big question.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll come in the final few questions just to talk about the specific contribution that safety, health, and well-being, and specifically safety practitioners can contribute to well-being.
Another thing, what we talk about today, we talk about well-being in the workplace. Well-being in the workplace, there's a certain limitation. We talk about the age from legal age in Thailand from 15 years old up to 60 years old working in the workplace. So we're concerned with a human being, 15 up to 60 years old. We're not worried about any above 60, 70 years old. We're not talking about well-being because they're off the workplace already. You see, we're not concerned that in the workplace. So we can limit in the workplace situation for the people while the workers. But when I mentioned earlier, when we talk about human resource, not only the workers, we talk about clients, suppliers, we talk about people in society. They're also human. You know, so their well-being is our concern as well, as far as business is concerned. So it's not only the workers concerned, but people outside the work as well. You know, that's a big story.
Thank you, dear. I had a couple of hands. I'll go Thomas, then Stina, and then I think we also had a question, I think, or a comment from in our crowd.
Yeah. Just quickly to a question, what do we do if they don't know how to do it? We offer a course called the Difficult Health Conversation, where my occupational physicians teach people, leaders, how to do it. So how do you prepare? How do you act in the conversation? And what do you do afterwards? And that is really highly appreciated. We received great feedback for these courses because people are giving the tools to do it.
Yeah, I think training around conversations. I think the skill of both line managers, and in fact, I've been very fortunate recently to be in conversations not only among at safety and health conferences, but at conferences for the people profession or HR profession. They're all dealing with the same issues, which is that in the current world that we're in, there is so much more emphasis on retaining human connection with people and having good conversations with people, and that's not something that necessarily comes naturally. So I think that those sorts of training interventions where they work are so effective. Stina?
Yeah, I just agree. You know, the fluent language is very important, but another aspect is the relation between employees and leaders. And we see, I'm sorry to say, in some of the big organizations that it's a career opportunity to just walk the way up the pipeline. So you are a leader, and the first conversation you have with your leader is, what's your next job? And then they're going to be there for 2 years, and then leave the group again. So the building of relationships between employers, employees and leaders is also a component. And that's difficult if you are leaving every 2 years. Yeah.
They might not be investing in the relation.
No. And the culture lives in the group because they've been there for 40 years, but the leaders are always different. So they're like looking at leaders walking past.
We change leaders, everything change again.
Yes, yeah. We just have to survive this one, and then the next one comes by. Yeah, that's how they think sometimes.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to the man. I'm going to go to the crowd.
The man in the front.
Yes. Interesting discussion. I like very much what has been said before the break. Keep it simple, yeah. Don't make it overcomplicated. I think we must retrain our leaders and on every level to be a human, yeah, and to show human behavior, human emotion. And it starts with extremely simple things. In my opinion, clear communication, yeah, is substantial. I know many cases that the workforce gets no information where the company is going to, what's happening. We had also in one of the other workshops in the morning, we had the discussion with AI. And so there was a point, maybe you can comment on that. that somebody asked, with all this AI hype we have meanwhile, it creates additional psychosocial stress or reduces well-being. Yeah? So it requires a lot of more interaction. What's coming up with AI? What's about my job? What's created of new stress factors by these new tools I have to use, and I'm not quite sure. Maybe you can comment a little bit. And I have a second observation. I think we must stop to call it safety walk. It is, we cannot make walks on safety. Next day we make a walk on health, and then we make a walk on well-being. It is a walk to show presence and to show interest in the work. Yeah. And it depends. It must be a mixture. You must have a eye on the ladder, work on the ladder. You must have an eye on the noise, and you must integrate in your walk a question. How are you today, or something like that? I think if we call it safety walk, still we should rename. We need a new name for that.
We can do that, Helmut. Find a new name for it.
I have had another question through on the slider, but I don't know if anybody on the panel had anything specifically in relation to Helmut that they wanted to say.
Regarding AI, actually, the topic of workshop is that evolution of humanistic in a workplace, right? Actually, evolution right now in the workplace, we change over from human workers to humanoid, to machine, to robots. The AI taking over. So actually, I think we have to be careful. The well-being may be threatened in the long term, in the future, if we let go without proper control. I think it's about time now. We need to think very carefully about well-being in the workplace. We need to establish acceptable standard for well-being. At the moment, we don't have exactly the right kind of standards for well-being. We have a safety standard, health standard, but we haven't got well-being standard. Only the standard on well-being that we have so far may be related to Vision Zero strategy, well-being. Okay, so only the people who belong to the Vision Zero group or want to get the Vision Zero award have to comply with the Vision Zero well-being standard. But at the moment, in the general workplace, we don't have the proper standard on the well-being. There's too many levels of well-being standard. We have to select what is a workplace standard for well-being. Otherwise, in the future, we're going to have problems.
If I could just answer the AI part. Like some people say, AI is not going to steal your job. Someone who knows how to use AI is going to steal your job. So in that respect, it all comes back to training again, to me, because you are absolutely right. The uncertainty is what is causing the lack of well-being. And that's about not knowing, how do I use this? How am I supposed to act? And if you start introducing training, like we are all getting known how to use it, right? So it's a learning curve that's steep to some and quite as steep to others, but we just need to train people. It's a good first step.
Yeah, and I think that what we should do first is to actually use the Vision 07 Golden Rules on AI and other types of digitalization, because we need to take it seriously in the sense that we need to think about what do we mean about, what is our strategy for dealing with AI in our company. We should get the management commitment, do the risk assessments on the benefits, on the challenges. We should put up metrics, we should train, we should have the right structures and all the things that we talk about in Vision Zero. I have tried to make Vision Zero for digitalization, and it's just my own thoughts, but just to try to go through all the different questions that we need to ask ourselves in companies when it comes to either if it's AI or if it's robotics. I think we should always, with the new things coming, we should at a strategic level think about this in a structured manner and ask the right questions in the organizations, both for the benefits and for the challenges that are there.
At the moment, I think there's a lot of law coming out in the EU as well as in the USA on the AI standard. ISO 42001 is also the standard of AI. We need to use this standard to control AI. Otherwise, we have a problem. But I think a lot of countries doing that now in China and Japan and in Singapore that starting to set a certain level of standard for AI, to keep control of that.
Yeah, and I think the question on standards is a really important one. We've just done a piece of work with IOSH, which I'm going to forget the exact statistics for, but I can give you an indicative idea, which was to ask business leaders what their priorities were around health and well-being and what the challenges were around health and well-being. The priorities were around, the priorities were very much around well-being and taking a more people-centered approach, and essentially suggesting that businesses were very engaged with the idea of well-being and being a socially sustainable business and all of those sorts of things. What came out as the number one challenge? Putting it in their strategy. That's the bit that there's not necessarily a natural place to start where people kind of, and particularly leaders, know where to start with it. And it was actually the same. It was the same when they were asked around sustainability. It was the same when they were asked around technology. The vision and the idea, the ambition is there, but in terms of that next step at the strategic level, there's certainly kind of struggles there. I think it's a really good question. Stina, your hand went up a moment ago.
It's just that now I am a psychologist. From a psychologist's point of view, technology is coming. It's always been here. But the last time I saw something dramatically different was, when we all got emails into our iPhones, and we thought it was very smart, and it is. But suddenly the work was limitless, so you could check your email at all time of the day and the night, and people were sending emails, and I think, it really stressed people. But it is coming. It's here, and it's useful. The AI is useful. So it's just like Pernille said, we have to be prepared so much as we can be to see what does it do with human beings in this limitless world where everything is possible at any time. How is it helpful? And when is it not helpful? So I just think we have to have a close eye to this because it affects people.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the big unanswered questions of the era as well, the degree to which we have become almost without our full knowledge, reliant upon, connectiveness at all times. I don't know that we fully know the longer term effects of that, of being connected at all times, using digital interfaces throughout our days at work, going home and sitting in front of the television. These are some kind of bigger, more existential questions that I don't think that we know the answers to yet. Gentleman in the audience who's been waiting patiently with a microphone in his hand. You've got the mic, though. You may as well.
Different topic.
Go for it.
I would like to raise up, I think the AI is...
It was a dummy microphone.
A complete different topic, but I listened, and it was very interesting to get your perspective on the AI discussion, which is really very important. The different topic is, my observation is that I saw a lot of job titles in the last couple of years, like the Chief Happiness Officer or the Chief Evangelist Officer. So, I see that rather critical because I was in a couple of panel discussions with the colleagues, and it sounded a little bit more like the flavor of the month than really talking about. Well, I would rather say the serious topics, which are really related to it. My thesis is that I saw that especially with startup companies, which are growing very fast. And they had, at the beginning, when they started, I think they had that family spirit we talked about with close ties, and they try really to bring that to the next level by growing. And it's really difficult. And from my perspective, the chief happiness officer is not the solution to sustain with these serious topics. I would really bring that to the table, because we face it when we look around at the job titles.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe I can share. We are doing a pilot in one part of the company with a well-being officer. Much more in a traditional way, but it's just to make sure that you have someone in line of business who can anchor the initiatives that we come up with from corporate. So it's more when we throw a ball, we want someone to catch it out there and implement. And that's the role of that person. And that seems to be going quite well, but it's not like she's playing the piano and singing and shooting confetti all over the place. It's very traditional way of how we do things. She's just our boots on the ground.
Yeah, just a comment for this is I think that this illustrates very much when we have these topics in the working environment that are not professionalized. If you have for example, in the board of directors or at the management level, you have a lack of knowledge on certain topics. We had it some years ago in health. Then you can have, or in stress, you can have managers deciding that, but stress, that is an individual perspective and that should be handled by everyone themselves. And when it comes to health, we need some happy person to do some rubber band training 10 minutes a day, or, that not that anything is wrong with that. It's not to say that, no, but just the professionalism of these topics. I think that illustrates very well. If you have this chief happiness officer, you're just scratching the surface and trying to make it like a promotion campaign or something without knowing that you need to dig deeper and have the structure and the strategic part of it, right?
Absolutely. Was there another question out this way?
Yeah, Mr. Thomas, I think you mentioned something about measuring the physical and mental well-being in Novo Nordisk, right? I might have missed it, but what exactly is being measured when you talk about mental well-being? Is it the symptoms, or is it the stress level, or what is the exact thing that you ask people when you do the survey or something like that?
We are asking the individual how they subjectively feel. So we are not going into symptoms, so it's not about mental disorders. In that sense, and that's because we very deliberately are not treating our own employees. So we have services where they can call and they can go see a psychiatrist if they have a mental disorder. So this is about saying, I might not feel well today, feeling sad. Maybe it's 2 years since my husband died today. So this week I'm not really feeling that good, or other things from outside. It could be something at work as well. So it's just to make people aware that I might not be 100% this week. And then the team and the leader can take that into consideration. And it's something we use, maybe a small teaser, I'm gonna present on Saturday as well, together with some Japanese colleagues who actually introduced this, which I think is very new in Japan, in the production side. At the production floor, they have a board where they rate their mental and physical well-being once a week. And then they take it into consideration as to where should they be placed at the production line.
Very good. Excellent. Pernille, I'm just looking over in your direction, given our time. I'm kind of planning the remainder of the session whilst we're live, and thinking about the best use of our time for the rest of the session. I'm almost tempted to open the floor to the rest of the panel and get them to share anything else that they feel hasn't been said at this point, and equally kind of last orders for any questions from the audience or comments from the audience that they would want to ask. So feel free to put your hand up again in the next couple of minutes. But is that all right if I kind of come down? I'll start. I mean, Pernille, I'll invite you to do the same if you want to do. If there's anything else that you wanted to share, and if you don't, then I'll go straight to Dira. Dira, is there anything that from you that you would want to share with the audience as a final thought, something that maybe the audience can take away with them at the end of the session today? I must admit, some of the things that you've already told us have been, for me, very enlightening. I think your view of well-being and it having this, aspect or dimension of dignity is something that's really powerful. So feel free to answer more on that or anything else, any other thoughts that you might have.
Okay. I think as far as in the workplace, I think it's the responsibility of the managers, of the executive, or the employer, if you like, to take care or be responsible for workers' well-being. Okay, in general, an overall picture. But once the leaders or the managers have the idea to be responsible for well-being of the workers, they have to assign to the specialists in the safety area, safety officers, medical doctors to take care of health, psychologists, or so on, HR managers, personnel managers to take care of the other part, welfare, other things, including salary and payment, everything for the workers. So many aspects of well-being. So not only one person can take care of all the aspects, but the top manager have to take care of that by assigning to the specialists who are concerned with individual aspect of the well-being. You can do that. Okay, even the marketing personnel can take care of the customers, supply as well. That's well-being as well. They can do that. But the top executive have to take care of that. Okay, that's well-being. But as I said before, that at the moment we have not the international standard on well-being standard. I think we need to think about that seriously now to establish in the long term international standard on well-being, workplace well-being. We talk about workplace well-being, okay? Because otherwise, in the future, we're going to be threatened. Well-being going to be threatened in the workplace if we don't have proper standard. At the moment, only certain section, like Vision Zero group, have a certain level of well-being, but other group, they haven't established that. The law haven't got anything to do with well-being yet. Okay, so we need to consider for the future, for sustainability. Another thing is that well-being should be equilibrium level, not maximum. And about equilibrium, not maximum, at the optimum level. For different people, the balance level may be here. Some people may be there, or different level. But we have considered the need and requirement for individual stakeholders. We have different needs. We have to identify first what their needs and their requirement before we set up their level of balance for the well-being. Okay. They're not exactly in the center, but depends on the needs and requirement, maybe up and down, depending on the people.
Absolutely, and I think that it's been a trend that's come out and we've come back to over the course of the last couple of hours, that kind of changeability and the importance of going back and revisiting and asking questions and taking surveys routinely so that we kind of see the ebbs and the flows of well-being and being set up in a way that we can do that. Stina, any final thoughts from you?
Just at the end of this session, I would like to say that I think it emphasizes that human skills is actually the most important part in working with mental well-being or well-being. And we all have that. We all part of families or groups of friends. So we just have to put something into the workplace. It's not that difficult, actually. We just have to talk. And I don't see it as something on top of the organization. I see it as a basic in the organization, but it's the ground. And on top of that, people want to, if they are in a nice party, they want to work, they want to engage with each other and do their job, and they will be productive, and so I see it as a basic and not that difficult.
Excellent, thank you, Stina. Thomas, any final thoughts?
Yeah. You call it decency. I normally refer to it personally as treating each other with respect. And to me, that's where it starts. And again, Stine mentioned the psychological safety. We've been talking about that for years in the company, and most people say, yeah, it sounds great, but how do we do it? It's actually pretty hard. We have now tried to make a concept where we are working with this, giving managers and employees some guidelines on how to address this. And that is actually the soil from where everything else grows. So if you have that part in place, then it comes natural. And then you can build the trust in the team, and from there continue to build. And that is what we need as a global healthcare company that needs to develop. We need people to be innovative. Otherwise, in the long run, we're not going to be there. And this is super, super important. If you do not treat people decent, with respect, and you do not have the psychological safety, then you will not keep evolving.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point that there is such a big difference. They're both parts of the same thing, but at the high level, of course, we want measurable data around well-being, and of course, we get more sophisticated, and we've got greater capability than ever to access, obtain, and work with well-being data and to input very sophisticated well-being interventions. But at the other end of the scale, at the level of, a manager and a worker, it's actually quite simple. It's around the way that we have conversations, and it's about the way that we understand other people's, lives and emotions and changes in their personality and so on, or changes in their workload. Yes, absolutely. Peniel, yes. Shall I hand over to you to do the final?
I think that was actually a fine final speech, Chris, you just made there. I mean, it's about relations and how to talk to each other. What better ending to this?
Well, there we go. Should we call it a day? There? What I will do is just offer thanks, first of all, to our speakers, Thomas, Stine, Dira, co-moderator, Peniel, myself. We'll do a round of applause for that.
Yeah.
And for Malcolm, obviously, who's in another important meeting. And of course, for those of you in the room, we'll give you a round of applause.
Yeah. Thank you for staying.
Thank you for staying. If there's anything else that people want to know, then I think we're being turfed out swiftly at 5, but we've still got 10 minutes. So if there's anything that people wanted to ask, then feel free to grab us. Seeing as Thomas has teased a session later in the week, I'm going to do the same and say that Peniel, Stine, and myself will be doing a session on Saturday at the symposium that's all around meaningful work, which touches upon lots of the stuff that we've covered today, including when Dira was talking about Maslow's hierarchy and thinking about that top end of the pyramid. We'll be touching on some of those things as well. So do come along to that. Thomas, were you going to tease some?
No, just saying if anyone want to come up afterwards and have some questions, they're always welcome. So
wonderful. And on that note, then, sorry, one final thank you that I almost forgot. Guillaume, thank you for taking your
notes.
Guillaume,
thank you. Sorry.
And thank you to everybody else. Enjoy the rest of the events and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.